But listen, see if we can shed some light on the
with me
subject.
because, you know, we have so much ammunition. We have ammunition. The problem is the fake news. That's why I like being on. I'd much rather do live television than do non-live because, like, when they say, as an example in my speech, peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol, peacefully and patriotically. Do you know that the Unselect Committee didn't report it, that I said those words? Do you know that the news never reported the words walk or march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol? Do you know they never reported it? It's a scandal. The Unselect Committee never reported that. They never reported that Nancy Pelosi was offered 10,000 soldiers, National Guard soldiers, whatever you want. No, I don't want them. And the mayor. The mayors weren't writing. She was more honorable about it. But Nancy got caught when her daughter did a documentary. She's a documentariess. And she has her mother saying, it's my fault. I should have taken the soldiers or something. I saw that in the documentary. I said, whoa, this was a major story. Has she spoken to her daughter since that, you know? But they just, you know, they are vicious people, even on the attack. And it was an amazing military feat that took place yesterday. Think of it, an amazing military. The people are saying, well, thank you. You know, people are saying it goes down with one of the most incredible. It was so complex, 152 airplanes, many.
He's always telling you what people are saying. A lot of people are saying it was the greatest military intervention.
Talk about boots on the ground. We had a lot of boots on the ground. But it was amazing. And think of it, nobody was killed. And on the other side, a lot of people were killed, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
I say that, soldiers.
He says nobody was killed, referring to his side. And unfortunately, I think 40 plus Venezuelans lost their life.
Cubans, mostly Cubans, but many killed. And they knew we were coming, and they were protected, and our guys weren't. You know, our guys are jumping out of helicopters, and they're not protected, and they were. But it was so brilliant. The electricity for almost the entire country was, boom, turned on. That's when they knew there was a problem. There was no electricity. Caracas said, there's no electricity. It's not the only people with lights were the people that had candles. It was just off. So we sort of got them a little by surprise, but it was brilliant tactically. It was an incredible thing. But I watched where
Schumer turned the lights out.
He's such a bad guy. I mean, I've known the guy for a long time, and he's such a bad guy. You know, at some point they should say, you know, you did a great job. Thank you. Congratulations. Wouldn't it be good? I would say that if they did a good job. Their philosophies are so different. But if they did a good job, I'd be happy for the country. They've been after this guy for years and years.
So he doesn't get the recognition he deserves.
And, you know, he's a violent guy. He gets up there and he tries to imitate my dance a little bit. But he's a violent guy. And he's killed millions of people. He's tortured. They have a torture chamber in the middle of Caracas that they're closing up. But he's tortured people. And now what they do, the radical left, they actually have people, and it's hard to get them. They're all paid people. Most of these people are paid. You know they're paid when they have brand new, beautiful printed signs, like the highest quality printer. And you have a woman, free Maduro. And the sign is before we even did the attack. You know, free Maduro. Why do you want him freed? I don't know, but he should be free. Oh, she reads the sign. What does that say? It says free. Well, that's what I believe. And, you know, you see the sign. It's like, Lisa, we should all have quality signage like that. The one thing I want their sign maker. The guy is good. He does beautiful signage.
Okay, Donald Trump talking about paid protesters. A bit like WWE back in the day.
Trump has no interest in Venezuelan democracy. This is about Trump believing he can grab anything he wants and get away with it. This time, oil. We know what happens when an American president launches an illegal war under the pretext of an imminent threat. It's why we oppose the Iraq war and why we condemn Trump today. National sovereignty matters. International law matters. Without them, the world is far more dangerous and we are all less safe. Yeah. Anyone who thinks Trump's actions will make China or Russia think twice is either hopelessly desperate or desperately naive. Putin and Xi will be using this precedent to strengthen their hands in Ukraine and Taiwan. And Madam Deputy Speaker, anyone who thinks Trump will stop with Venezuela hasn't read his new national security strategy. He's already threatening Colombia, Cuba and Greenland and even democracies across Europe. Does the Foreign Secretary not realise how ridiculous it looks to refuse to call this what it is, a clear breach of international law? Yeah. Will she at least publish all the advice the government has received on the legality of Trump's actions?
Okay, and Mark M is saying another weak simp. What does that mean, Mark May? And who are you talking about? Are you talking about Trump? Are you talking about me? Are you talking to me? We don't have the phone number tonight, so you can't phone me up, unfortunately. Let's hear from the professor.
I now give the floor to Mr. Jeffrey Sachs.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, the issue before the Council...
I don't think, was that guy Labour? Because he said he opposed the Iraq war, but Labour did the Iraq war, didn't they? Weren't people like George Galloway kicked out of the Labour Party for opposing the Iraq war? So I don't know if that guy was Labour, I could be wrong.
Any member state, by force, coercion, or economic strangulation, has the right to determine Venezuela's political future or to exercise control over its affairs. This question goes directly to Article 2, Section 4 of the United Nations Charter, which prohibits the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The Council must decide whether that prohibition is to be upheld or abandoned. Abandoning it would carry consequences of the gravest kind. Let me offer some background. Since 1947, the United States foreign policy has repeatedly employed force, covert action, and political manipulation to bring about regime change in other countries. This is a matter of carefully documented historical record. In her book, Covert Regime Change, political scientist Lindsay O'Rourke documents 70 attempted U.S. regime change operations between 1947 and 1989 alone. These practices did not end with the Cold War. Since 1989, major United States regime change operations undertaken without authorization by the Security Council have included, among the most consequential, Iraq 2003, Libya 2011, Syria beginning in 2011, Honduras 2009, Ukraine 2014, and Venezuela from 2002 onward. The methods employed are well established and well documented. They include open warfare, covert intelligence operations, instigation of unrest, support for armed groups, manipulation of mass and social media, bribery of military and civilian officials, targeted assassinations, false flag operations, and economic warfare. These measures are illegal under the UN Charter, and they typically result in ongoing violence, lethal conflict, political instability, and deep suffering of the civilian population. The recent U.S. record with respect to Venezuela is also clear. In April 2002, the U.S. knew of and approved an attempted coup against the government. In the 2010s, the United States funded civil society groups actively engaged in anti-government protests. When the government cracked down on the protests, the U.S. followed with a series of sanctions. In 2015, President Barack Obama declared Venezuela to be, and I quote, an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. In 2017, at a dinner with Latin American leaders on the margin of the UN General Assembly, President Trump openly discussed the option of the US invading Venezuela to overthrow the government. During 2017 to 2020, the United States imposed sweeping sanctions on the state oil company PDVSA. Oil production fell by 75% from 2016 to 2020, and the real GDP per capita declined by 62%. The UN General Assembly has repeatedly voted overwhelmingly against such unilateral coercive measures. Under international law, only the Security Council has the authority to impose such measures. On the 23rd of January 2019, the United States unilaterally recognized Mr. Juan Guaido as interim president, and a few days later froze approximately $7 billion of Venezuelan sovereign assets held abroad and gave the designated authority over certain of these assets. These actions form part of a continuous U.S. regime change effort spanning more than 2 decades. In the past year, the United States has carried out bombing operations in 7 countries, none of which were authorized by the UN Security Council, and none of which were undertaken in lawful self-defense under the Charter. The targeted countries include Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and now Venezuela. In the past month, President Trump has issued direct threats against 6 UN member states, including Colombia, Denmark, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, and of course, Venezuela. Members of the Council are not called upon to judge Nicolas Maduro. They are not called upon to assess whether the recent U.S. attack and ongoing naval quarantine results in freedom or in subjugation. Members of the Council are called upon to defend international law, and specifically the UN Charter. The realist school of international relations, articulated most brilliantly by John Mearsheimer, accurately describes the condition of international anarchy as the tragedy of great power politics. Realism is therefore a description, not a solution for peace. Its own conclusion is that anarchy leads to tragedy. In the aftermath of World War I, the League of Nations was created to end a tragedy through the application of international law. Yet the world's leading nations failed to defend international law in the 1930s, leading to renewed global war. The United Nations emerged from that catastrophe as humanity's second great effort to place international law above international anarchy. In the words of the Charter, the UN was created, quote, to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind. Given that we are in the nuclear age, failure cannot be repeated. Humanity would perish. There would be no third chance. To fulfill its responsibilities under the Charter, the Security Council should immediately affirm the following actions. The United States shall immediately cease and desist from all explicit and implicit threats or use of force against Venezuela. The United States shall terminate its naval quarantine and all related coercive military measures undertaken in the absence of authorization by the UN Security Council. The United States shall immediately withdraw its military forces from within and along the perimeter of Venezuela, including intelligence, naval, air, and other forward deployed assets positioned for coercive purposes. Venezuela shall adhere to the UN Charter and to the human rights protected in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Secretary General, I recommend, should immediately appoint a special envoy mandated to engage relevant Venezuelan and international stakeholders and to report back to the Security Council within 14 days with recommendations consistent with the Charter, and the Security Council should remain urgently seized of this matter. All member states should refrain from unilateral threats, coercive measures, or armed actions undertaken outside the authority of the UN Security Council. In closing, Mr. President and distinguished members of the Council, peace and the survival of humanity depend on whether the United Nations Charter remains a living instrument of international law or is allowed to wither into irrelevance. That is the choice before this Council today. Thank you very much.
I thank Mr. Sachs for his briefings. I now give the floor to Ms. Mercedes de Frateas.
Is that all from Mr. Jeffrey Sachs? Looks like it.
Okay.
I don't know if we're going to hear
My
from...
apology. I now give the floor to Ms. Mercedes de Frateas.
Okay, never mind about her. Yeah, Jeffrey Sachs spelling it out for you quite accurately. What about our good old Prime Minister Keir Starmer? Let's have a listen to him. He's always good for a laugh.
Some people might be puzzled listening to you say that you think America might not be in breach of international law over Venezuela. I can't find an international lawyer who thinks this is anything other than a blatant breach.
International law has to be the framework and the anchor, the benchmark, if you like, against which we gauge all actions of all governments across the world. It's important we don't lose sight of the substance here. The president was illegitimate, and the thing that we need above all else is a peaceful transition to democracy. That was the position. That was the position of this government before the weekend. It remains the position of this government.
Donald Trump was asked about that just in the last few hours. He sounded much more interested in getting American oil companies into Venezuela in a hurry than he did in having democratic elections in a hurry.
Well,
that's the guy, isn't he? That's what he's like.
I speak for our government, and let me be absolutely clear that peaceful transition to democracy is the number one priority in Venezuela. That's been our position all the weekend. It remains our position.
If you think it's not happening, and if you think he's breached international law, would you be willing to vote the other way on the UN Security Council?
Well,
from America?
I mean, the Security Council has no resolution drafted yet, so we haven't got into that space.
But in principle.
But let me. I do think that it's important to just look in here at the substance of the issue. The president was illegitimate. It caused untold misery for people in Venezuela, and we need that transition to democracy, that peaceful transition. That, as I say, the position before the weekend remains our position.
But it's important also, isn't it, for countries like Britain to lay down red lines? Would it be a red line?
Why is he so desperate for there to be democracy in other countries? There's loads of countries that are not democratic at all. Saudi Arabia's not very democratic. He's not up in arms about that.
If President Trump decided to do the same thing in Cuba that he just did in Venezuela?
Well, the benchmark for this government will always be international law. The framework will be international law. And for the US or any government, it's for them to justify their actions.
As a red line. So people will say, actually, what you're telling those Labour MPs who are upset about this, international lawyers who are upset about it, is actually, I'm afraid we've got bigger fish to fry, on Ukraine particularly. And you just got to suck this up. We're not going to do much.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I've been absolutely clear. The framework is international law. I've been an advocate.
Politicians always say how clear they've been. I've been absolutely clear.
And argued for international law all my life. That hasn't
this
changed.
Must offend you.
This hasn't changed. The situation is complicated. It's complicated even today. There's further developments in Venezuela. So the US will obviously have to justify the action that it's taken and is taking. But we mustn't lose sight of the fact that that peaceful transition to democracy is the single most important thing.
You must worry about the message this sends to Russia and China. They believe they can do what they like in their spheres of influence. That's been absorbing a lot of your time in the case of Russia. And he's doing the same thing in America, isn't he? Sending out an appalling message to those countries, isn't it?
Well, that's why, consistent with our allies, we are making the argument that international law is the framework, is the anchor, is the benchmark for any government around the world. And that remains the situation in Venezuela.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
He's so worried about international law all of a sudden. In the chat, Bruce is asking, do you guys have any assassins over there? JFC. I hope not. I don't know. Do we have any assassins? The word assassin, of course, comes from the Arabic. the hashashin, the people that like to smoke the weed. Paul Willis is dismissing Keir Starmer's remarks as hogwash. Haven't heard that term for a while, probably since the last time we heard from Keir Starmer. So look, America is a free country. Venezuela isn't. America has freedom of speech, and here are some protesters gathering in response to the invasion.
This is not just a foreign issue, it's our tax dollars that are also being used to commit these war crimes. It is also the duty of us, the people, to stand against the Trump regime, the Trump administration that are committing crimes both here in the US and against people in Venezuela.
Nice scarf.
Now, in the background of this interview, you could see that police car. And now right here, we're showing you video we have. Immediately after the interview finished, Plickta was arrested by 2 Grand Rapids police officers. You can see it in the video, and an officer tells Plickta that she is being arrested for obstructing a roadway and failure to obey a lawful command from a police officer. You can see as she's taken away in that car, she was issuing a number of messages about wanting the U.S. to free Maduro. But again, she was taken away by police officers there, and you can see in this video, officers were closely following this procession in downtown Grand Rapids. We have reached out to GRPD for more information about the arrest, but we have not heard back so far.
Unbelievable. In a free country, I thought you could stand in the road and protest, but obviously not. We had some good comments that I missed earlier on. Mark was wondering, has anybody asked the Venezuelan people what they wanted? It seems like they're all very happy about the outcome. Have you been watching lots of footage from Venezuela, Mark? Do they look happy? I mean, I've seen crowds of people that are happy about it, and crowds of people that were not happy about it. W.T. Fova was, I presume, joking when he said, "I'm proud of Trump sticking to no new wars and not being the world police." Yeah, the world police. I mean, should we have the world police? If it wasn't America, and it looks like the American empire is about to collapse, and we have had Britain as the ruling state in the world. We've had America as a superpower since the end of the Second World War. Who do you think will emerge as the new superpower? Does there always have to be one country that's on top? Will it be China? Will it be BRICS, which includes China? Will it be somewhere else? And Oceans is saying, people have no say in the world anymore. Well, in a democracy, you're meant to have a say in who runs your country, aren't you? The US is a democracy, apparently. Does that mean people, or does it mean democracy, ruled by the people? Have we ever had a genuine democracy? Mohammed Omar saying Saudi Arabia will be the new world police. Will they, Omar? Will they enforce the hijab on all of us and the other strict rules that they have in Saudi, like no drinking, apart from in certain hotels apparently? What makes you think that Saudi Arabia will be the world's police? Were that family not put in power 200 years ago by the British because they promised to be loyal to the British and beneficial for the British? Oceans One is saying democracy is dying. Is it? Hands up all those people that think democracy is dying, and hands up people that think it's still alive. Porto is saying, I have no sympathy for any country that makes things easy for the drug cartels. Yeah. What's the other name for the gangs? The drug cartels. There's another name for them, and they are almost running the country. But doesn't every government deal in some kind of substance. I mean, alcohol, is that not an addictive drug? And is it not heavily taxed? Is nicotine not heavily taxed? Is there you go, narcos. Narcos. Well, yeah, narcos as in narcotics. I know that's drugs, but I think there was another name for them. The cartels, the narcos. It will come to me. A friend and I collaborated on an essay one night for part of his coursework, and we went into great detail on these gangs that run the drugs down there. What are they called? Completely slipped my mind. But anyway, we know that. I mean, any substance. I mean, what is a quicker way to make money than drugs? And I would never encourage it or condone it. But it's a fast-selling product, and you have control over people. So how can you avoid that happening? And here's Calvin saying, I don't know the history of Greenland, but it's about to get a name change to Red, White and Blue Land. Yeah, well, Greenland is it's owned by Denmark. You're on Danish soil when you're in Greenland, but I'm sure there's native people that live there that predate all of that. Spirit is saying, is that a Trump designer scarf? Yeah, Trump wears one of these. He just doesn't like to tell anybody. It's interesting to note Trump's conversation with Mahmoud Abbas. Look it up. It's the drug syndicate. They are corporate with banks involved. Really, are the banks involved with the drugs? The closest I ever got to doing drugs in South America was the coca leaf. When you're climbing up Machu Picchu, the great Inca village, at the great peak, the locals give you this cocoa leaf to chew, which is a derivative of cocaine. I think if you had like a ton of the leaves, you could probably make a gram of cocaine, but it's from that plant, and it's meant to give you a little bit of a buzz to prevent the altitude sickness. So when I was up in Machu Picchu, I was given some of these leaves and I did chew on them. You didn't really notice much of an effect. But yeah, that's as close as I've ever got to anything like that. Captain is saying Fort Bragg cartel. Cartel, maybe that is the word I'm looking for, cartel, but I'm sure there was another word for them. Yeah. And Mohammed Omar is saying, I did drugs as I was driving on motorway once. I couldn't feel my legs. Don't do drugs and drive, Omar. You should know better than that. Although you may need caffeine if you're falling asleep at the wheel. I don't know. Stay safe out there, kids. Sorry we didn't get the phone number up on the screen tonight. I do like to keep things interactive, but we've got quite a few people in the chat. And Captain saying, I just came on responding to that. No problem, Captain Homer. You're always welcome on here. And Porto is saying, I must say, you have an easy voice to listen to. A good voice for radio. Thank you. I will go back to faceless content tomorrow night. I'm just checking in with you guys. And I love radio. It's a shame that as everything became live streamed and a live stream option, and even Talk Sport, Talk Radio, they've all got live stream, and you can see the ugly person in front of you. It removes that illusion, because when you're listening to the radio, you're kind of picturing it in your own mind, like reading a book. It's your own experience. But now that we want everything real and digital and live in your face, it's kind of ruined that. So I will go back at some point to the old-fashioned way of hiding the face. I wonder if I can do it now, can I? No. We should legalise drugs. End of crime. I don't know. I think there's got to be I mean, some drugs are legal, some are not. Why is caffeine legal? It's as addictive as any of the other ones, but it doesn't seem to be as harmful. I've been drinking too much coffee, as you can see by the fact that I'm still awake at this time. Sugar is a drug. I am addicted to sugar. I admit it. And so many other things that we do are addictive. It's very hard to break that cycle. And does Donald Trump really care about the drugs, or does he just care that other people are profiting from it? The other night someone mentioned on here fentanyl. And I don't know if that is the drug that's arriving on the streets via South America. Cynthia is pointing out that caffeine is addictive. Try not having any instant migraine. Well, I think the migraine might come from dehydration, and coffee is a diuretic. It makes you pee out more water than you need to. Mohammed Omar is saying, come on sir, drugs is not the same as sugar and tea. Well, what is a drug? It's something that alters the chemical balance in your brain. Doesn't sugar do that? Doesn't sugar make you crave more sugar? Apparently if you are craving sugar, you should have a bit of salt instead, and that might kill the craving. But don't have too much coffee. Cynthia is mentioning a drug, and Michael is saying never legalise drugs. It's the end. Well, look, I think there's a lot of wisdom in religion, and if you want to ban something, sometimes it has to be done gradually. If an alcoholic stops drinking overnight like that, it could be very, very lethal for him or her. You need to stop gradually. You need to come off the substance with professional help. So just banning drugs overnight is not going to work, and nor is just saying, oh, you can have as many drugs as you want. You need to cultivate a society where people don't want to do drugs, aren't hooked, don't have to turn to drugs. There was an experiment with rats, and all the best experiments are done with rats, and they gave the rats access to drugs, and it might have been cocaine, and the rats were going for it and getting as much of the drug as they could and getting out of their head. But when they gave the rats alternatives and water and access to exercise, or that wheel that they can run around in, they didn't get as hooked on the drugs anymore. So if you've got nothing in your life, nowhere to turn to, and someone gives you the instant shortcut to happiness, that's all it is, isn't it? It's a shortcut to happiness. If you go and play football or go and socialise with your friends or do jiu-jitsu or whatever it is, you'll get endorphins in the brain. You'll get a chemical in the brain, happy chemical. Drugs is just a shortcut to that. Oh, I can't be bothered to go and train or go outside, or I'm too much of a recluse. I don't want to go outside without a mask on because I'm afraid I might catch something. Then the shortcut is, well, I'll inject the happiness. Here's the money, and give me the happiness. Thank you very much. Next time I'm going to need twice as much. Laurie Croft, not Lara Croft, is saying sugar is the most widely distributed addictive drug with serious medical consequences. I know. I need to stop eating too much sugar. I sort of kid myself. I think if I can eat enough good food, that'll cancel it out. And I can't eat sugar on an empty stomach. But if I have had a big, healthy dinner, healthy meal, red meat, then I feel like I have to have, a chocolate cookie. Razor is saying when they gave the rats a good environment, they didn't want the drugs. Razor knows what I'm talking about. He's no stranger to rats, perhaps. Mohammed Omar is confessing. This is a safe space, by the way. I smoked 30 to 40 cigarettes for 10 years, every day. On my first visit to Medina, I gave up instantly. SubhanAllah. There is something about that place. We should send drug users there. Wow. This is what Omar is talking about, is the holy city of Medina, the second holiest spot in Islam. And he gave up his 30 a day habit on the spot. Incredible. Ocean is saying, looking at you alone is addicting. Does that make you a drug? Ah, thanks, Ocean. You've clearly got a sense of humour. Laughter is addictive and it's contagious. We should all try and cheer each other up. And Mohammed Omar is actually a professional comedian, so I'm hoping to see him in action soon. There's a open mic in Palestine House. I think it's this week. Omar, when is the open mic for Palestine House in Holborn in central London? Will you be there? I'm considering it. I do a little bit of stand-up comedy now and then. You can find it on the channel if you flick back through. If you think I've got a voice for radio, you could listen to a little bit of comedy, because I also like to have a laugh along with doing all the serious stuff. I've got a friend who wants to talk about, or I want him to talk about racism, actually, talking of serious subjects, someone I might get on the screen at some point. If you took drugs out of the UK completely, you would see a marked decline in anti-social. But it's so hard to, like, what are you basing that on? This is like the modelling that Chris Whitty and co came up with, saying, if we did this, then this would happen. And if we didn't do this, then this would happen. How do we know what it would look like if you took drugs out of the UK? And what are you calling a drug? Are we including sugar or not? Because I can't define what a drug is. It's easier to ask someone what is a woman than what is a drug. Mohammed Omar is confirming the time and date for Palestine House open mic is this Friday at 7:30 p.m. in the evening. Can I make it? I don't know. I would love to. Ocean saying, I love stand-up comedy. Well, if you like stand-up comedy, you're going to love when I do it. Mohammed Omar is saying, laughter is the joy of life. Without it, life is really pointless. I know, but how come whenever anyone says something like that to me, I remember Robin Williams, who brought so much joy to other people, yet was suffering so much inside. How could he bring so much joy but not be joyful or not be content in his own life? Razor is saying drug is something with a physical addiction. Is it? Does it have to? Is every drug addictive then? But you can be addicted to anything, can't you? Some people get addicted to gambling. That's not a drug, but it's probably releasing endorphins, or what's the other chemical that people get addicted to? Endorphins and dopamine. Dopamine. Look at me, I'm addicted to live streaming. I've been live streaming every night of the year so far. Will I make it a whole year in a row? I don't know. Maybe I'm hooked on the dopamine. Someone paid me a compliment about half an hour ago and I got so big-headed over it. Michael Farrington is saying, sorry pal, I'm in the wrong gaff. That's all right, Michael. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to leave. Razor saying maybe I'm wrong. That's very humble of you, Razor. I don't know. I mean, you were probably onto something with addiction. Peak Supreme is the life and soul of the party, who's saying, I find comedy not funny. Comedy should be criminalised, like we should all go after people who make unfunny and bad jokes. Oh, well, but you don't find any comedy funny, Peak Supreme, or do you? Not quite clear what you meant there. Chess with Somi is saying, yeah, love is a form of addiction. Is it? They say there's a thin line between love and hate. When you're addicted to that person, you can love them / hate them. And then before you know it, you're showing up with a book under your arm, A Catcher in the Rye, apparently. Michael is saying res, I don't know what that means. Michael Farrington is saying, can I ask, what is your story? How long have you got, Michael? My story is still being told. I am 40 years young, but I do keep some of my cards very close to my chest, So you come in, you can ask me anything. I just might not answer it. Mohammed Omar is saying, something funny for you may not be funny to next man. Yeah, that's true. If someone falls over, it's funny for us, isn't it? And not other people. Michael is praying. Amen, Michael. Thank you very much, sir. Oceans is saying, you look amazing for 40. Thank you very much, Oceans, for that backhanded compliment / whatever it might have been. Thank you very much. Yeah, 40 is the new 39. And look, how old's Donald Trump? The guy's well into his 70s and he's the president. So there's hope for all of us. Chess is saying, world without comedy would be boring and robotic. Yeah, but I mean, some people just don't have a sense of humour, do they? But they probably have fulfilling lives and they enjoy other things. But if you're someone who enjoys humour, it's very hard to imagine what. But some people just they don't like comedy, or they don't get it, or I don't know. And some people like slapstick humour and find it really funny. Me, I like the witty stuff. That's why comedy is subjective. Razor is saying. Michael saying, what is your opinion of Trump? Donald J. Trump, the 47th president of the United States. That's my impression of him. My opinion of him is I can understand I don't hate the guy. I hate what he's done. in Venezuela and elsewhere, but isn't that just what the president of the United States does? The problem is the nature of the beast. I didn't hate Joe Biden. I didn't hate Barack Obama. I think I hated George Bush back in the day because I was still at the age and the mindset of taking things personally and my team's better than yours. And when I saw him steal the election from Al Gore, I thought, man, this guy, he shouldn't even be the president, because that election seemed very dodgy and he didn't even win at the ballot box. It was decided in the court, wasn't it? And I watched Michael Moore's film at the time. Was it Fahrenheit 9/11? Was that the one about George Bush? And I sort of took it very personally. And then years later, seeing this sort of left versus right, partisan, one worse than another, I realised each year you were just hoping for the lesser of two evils. So I'm not surprised that Donald Trump has done anything that he did. As a person of the left, I've got kind of like less to lose because I don't feel like he's my team if you want to play that game. But I can understand why people wanted an outsider. You'd had Bush Senior, Clinton, then another Bush, and then you nearly had Hillary Clinton. It nearly went Bush, Clinton, Bush, Clinton, Bush, two-family rule. And then Jeb Bush was running for election the year that Donald Trump stood as a Republican. So it was nearly Bush, Clinton, Bush, Clinton, but it's just two-family rule. We criticise the one-family rule in Saudi Arabia, or the fact that Bashar al-Assad took over from his dad. But you've got two-family rule almost in America. So I could understand why people would want an outsider, just a normal, regular millionaire like Donald Trump, whose father gave him a small loan of $1 million. I could understand why people were looking to him and wanting him to be different. Someone said it in the comments earlier on, and I'm trying to put it on the screen again. I'm proud of Trump sticking to no new wars and not being the world police. That's what people were hoping for. Is that what they got? Absolutely not. I missed this one from Razor saying Red Dwarf fan. Absolutely. Definitely a big Red Dwarf fan. Yeah, thanks for the memory. Love Red Dwarf. That's a flashback to my youth. Someone asked if I'm British. Yes, I'm born in Britain and have a British passport, if that's what being British means. Chess is asking, what's the one thing you have achieved that's precious to you the most? Well, it wasn't the fact that I improved turnover every year without losing a single member of staff. I'm only joking. I'm trying to quote David Brent from The Office. The most precious thing that I have achieved is becoming a father. That's the most precious thing that I've achieved. But on the lighter side of things, there's a few trophies and gold medals on my mum's piano that I've achieved in the ring and the octagon back in the day. Ram Narindigale is saying hi. You're very welcome, Ram Narindigale. I can't read. Sorry. Learning to read would be a great achievement for me. Oh, look. Stephanie is saying, Mind your own business if you aren't American. Isn't that what Donald Trump should have done? Mind your own business if you're not from Venezuela. You mind your own business. Stephanie Zone, are you American? America's business is the world's business. We watch your films. We don't vote in your election, but we follow it because you are the world's police. Although that may change very soon. Mind your own business if you're American. Unbelievable. You speak our language, the English language, but you invent words like sidewalk and French fries. I don't know. They say we're a people divided by the same language. All right, folks, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for indulging me in my addiction, the live stream addict. I've gone live every night of the year so far. Will I make it to the end of the year? Probably not, but I'll try and do a week in a row. And if you feel like it, we'll tune in tomorrow night, similar time, late evening UK time, GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. This has been Lessons for Life, and we'll do it all again soon, God willing. We were here, we are gone. Mind your own business.